So now we know the problems with Social Security. It's a very popular program that, ironically, more than half of the country has little faith will exist in 10 years' time. You might be asking, why hasn't this been fixed yet? So let's take a swing at it. And joining me in the trapeze, our Senior Vice President of Campaigns at the AARP, Mr. John Hishta, and Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute, Mr. Christopher Pope. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
So the perceptions are that Social Security isn't going to be here or it's going to be dramatically reduced. So what we hope we can focus on with both of you is what your views are on how to fix it and when we should do that. So Mr. Pope, let's start with you.
Well, the main problem that we face is that the cost of the program is increasing every year and the money coming in just isn't increasing at the same rate. The amount of people retiring, the amount of people that are on benefits are living longer and longer. And there isn't that contribution that's increasing in line with that. So my proposal is basically that people should have a choice for how the program works in future. They should be able to essentially keep the current benefit and pay additional taxes to finance the current benefit as they want it to be. Or they should have an alternative choice, essentially a better focused benefit, a flat benefit of about $17,000, $18,000 a year to guarantee that they won't be in poverty in old age. And for the rest of their working career, they should be able to have a lower payroll tax. So this would be a choice that we would allow for younger workers that would basically put the program on a sustainable track, would make the program more effective at securing people from poverty in old age, and also have less of a burden on workers for the remainder of their careers.
So, Mr. Pope, so you understand it, based on your proposal, that would make it solvent going forward?
It would. So you would have essentially a net payroll tax cut of 2% for people who elected for this option for a flat benefit in retirement. And then for people who chose to basically maintain the status quo, they would face a 3 percentage point increase in the payroll tax, which is basically the amount that is required to keep the current benefit.
Mr. Hishta, what's your thoughts on that, and do you have an alternative proposal?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, you need to understand the politics of the situation, and that's something that would never fly in Washington, D.C. right now. Look, at the end of the day, there are ways to get creative in attempting to raise revenue for the program. You could increase the tax max, which is, in essence, raising the cap on taxes that recipients pay into Social Security right now. I think it's currently around $160,000, $170,000 a year. And you could also remember when the program was started, it was mainly focused on people who receive W-2 wages. And nowadays there is a lot of income through passive means and so on. And so there are a lot of creative ways to raise additional revenue to fix that funding gap, which is going to occur in 2033. It's only about a 20% on average funding gap for the average beneficiary. And so I think if members of Congress on both sides of the aisle get around the table and have some conversations about this with some presidential leadership, they can get it done sooner rather than later.
So just so I'm clear, Mr. Hishta, if you uncap the Social Security payments and they just, is that in and of itself gonna solve the problem, or do we need other sources of revenue as well?
It would solve the problem for a couple of generations, that's for sure.
Mr. Pope, do you agree with that?
I think the problem that runs into is that Social Security is not the only claim on increased taxes. We're running a gigantic deficit because of healthcare programs right now. Medicaid needs to be paid for. That program has doubled in size over recent decades. Medicare is projected to grow many times faster than Social Security over the next coming decades. And we have the compounding interest on the national debt. So if Social Security was the only program that we had to pay for with tax increases, that might be possible. The problem is that we have many other programs that are also going to need to be financed. And when you add it together, it's just not going to work.
So, Mr. Hishta, just if you could briefly summarize the AARP's proposal or outline of what they would do to fix it. Is that basically what you just said, or is there more details?
We don't necessarily have a proposal per se, John. We're just engaging with lawmakers across the political spectrum, talking about different options that are currently under consideration here in Washington, D.C. That would be one of them to look at. I think that what currently is off the table is any kind of benefit cuts as it relates to raising the retirement age and things of that nature. I mean, the Republican Party under President Trump has made it pretty clear that they don't want to go down that road. So if you look at ways to deal with that funding gap, there are multiple, again, ways to do it through different avenues to raise revenue for the program.
So you two have competing views, and you're not screaming and yelling at each other, and you're not saying things to scare the hell out of each other. So why is it that the politics in Washington are such that they do that? First of all, and then second of all, how do we get past that? And I have an idea, but I want to hear it from you. And we can start with Mr. Pope.
Well, I mean, neither of us is trying to win an election right now. And the easiest thing in having an election is to scare people about change, scare people about benefit cuts and tax increases. And those are the two easiest things to basically raise. Nobody wants to pay higher taxes. No one wants to pay lower benefits. What I'm suggesting is really an option that gives people the choice and the responsibility. If you want to keep the benefits coming at the current level, well, there are higher taxes associated with that. If you want to keep your taxes low or reduce them, there's a benefit package that will basically be affordable at that level, and basically give people the responsibility to choose which path they want to take going forward. It sort of trusts people and sort of gives them the flexibility, but also the responsibility to bear the costs that are associated with the different types of program that we might want to have.
Mr. Hishta.
Say a couple of things. And first and foremost, you have to have the public behind whatever solution you ultimately decide. Politics is important in this conversation, and sometimes we forget it. And in order for this to happen, we need to have presidential leadership and leadership on both sides of the aisle come to the table and understand that the American people want this done. And one of the things we at AARP will continue to push is to bring folks to the table to have the conversation in order to come up with a solution before 2033. It's a difficult proposition, but we got to hold elected leaders accountable for making the choices they need to make moving forward. And as Chris said, at the end of the day, they're going to be up for re-election. And I can guarantee you this, if they do nothing, they're going to face a lot of problems at the polls come 2034.
So what happened in the early 80s with Reagan and Tip O'Neill was they were up against it. And what they did is they formed a bipartisan commission and basically followed a lot of the recommendations and took ideas from both sides, just like you presented here today. Do you think that would work in today's climate, Mr. Hishta?
I think that a commission is a cop-out, John. I think at the end of the day, this is going to take, again, presidential leadership and congressional leadership to step up to the plate, get together, and make the tough choices they need to make. Even if you go back and look at the 83 process, the commission in unto itself was driven a lot by the people who were leading the commission as well. It wasn't as Pollyannish as everybody says it is at this point in the game. There was pure politics involved back then as well.
Mr. Pope, you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think 1983 actually does show that you can make progress. I think it was certainly the real prospect that the cost lines of the program just weren't going to be sustainable and unsustainable very soon that kind of forced change. I think the difference between the parties and what they want Social Security to do is not that huge. So even though at election time it's easy to exaggerate the differences, I'm actually fairly optimistic that both parties ultimately want the program to do roughly the same things at its core and that they'd be able to find a solution.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for a great conversation, very helpful, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.